if my ox was eating your wife's tulips and you didn't want the police to remove the ox, then I don't think the police would try to do that.
True. I guess I'm just kind of looking at it and saying, well, you know, there's other ways, like civilly, for me to worry about if, you know, I hit someone's chicken, or if, you know, there are other mechanisms rather than a $1,000 fine and needing to drag the police in, at least on the first case. So that's just kind of what I'm looking at, saying, really?
we would envision that to happen before the police were involved.
Good.
Can I speak on that? And been directly affected many times.
Yes.
Not by my ox.
So, it's a hard situation, and I think Dick could shake his head to our case. We have had dogs rip up 9 sheep. It cost us over $1,200 to have the vet come every day, give them shots, and I worked with them for 6 weeks to save them. And this has happened more than once. We've been taken to court for shooting a dog in our pasture, that with a picture of the dog dead, and the sheep's whole face ripped off completely, that we had to shoot. And the question in court was, well, if you cared about that sheep, you wouldn't have shot it. Well, that sheep had no face. And having gone through this over and over, it's something that it's a very trying situation. And believe me, my husband and I have spent a lot of money in fence to keep our animals on their own property. And it has happened over and over. And yes, we call the police, and that's, so on private property, I can attest to the fact that hopefully it isn't. If your dog came in my yard, I'd probably call you up and I'd say, do you know your dog's loose? But when the dog is coming on a steady basis, just about dusk, you know they're there for no good reason. So, you know, I agree that it's nice if you can work with a person. I think it's wonderful. But if you can't, there has to be some means of enforcement for your own private animals. So, I mean, that's just my own personal experience.
And I appreciate that. I guess I misunderstood the perspective of the selectmen, because it kind of looked to me like it was, I mean, we have chickens, and they free range, and very seldom do they ever go beyond their 200 feet. So I kind of looked at it as, wow, is this a restriction on the homeowners to have, you know, these, you know, either domestic or farm animals? That's the rural character of Barrington. But seeing your point of view, well, I guess I'd want that protection for my animals too.
And let me state very clearly, this is nothing to do with being a selectman. This is being a resident of the town of Barrington who's had farm animals, well, ever since I can remember, and tried very hard to keep them confined and on our own property. And they have been abused within the confinement of their own property.
Thank you.
Next.
Jackie Kessler, and I'm short, obviously. But I think Barrington is still a pretty good farm area. It has a lot of horses, a lot of people own cows. But in some neighborhoods, I live in a very nice neighborhood. If my dogs ate the neighbor's chickens, I would apologize and get them new chickens and make sure my dog stays tied. But not everybody lives in nice neighborhoods. And some neighbors do not get along. And there needs to be some enforcement for somebody whose dog comes in and kills your chickens, and then the person owning the dog takes no responsibility. So I think it's a good thing to help the police enforce some difficult situations.
Thank you. Next. Seeing none.
Yes. Julie Olivier. I'm trying to figure out, Mr. Moderator, how Don is going to be satisfied, because this is about public way. I'm wondering if this ordinance will actually do what it is that both you and other people have expressed as a need in town, if we're only talking about public ways. Is this article actually deficient?
It's our lands and other areas not owned by the animals owner.
So it is private also?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Are there any domestic animals which are exempted from this?
There's a long list of what is included as domestic animals in the
Are
ordinance.
cats exempted from this?
Cats are exempted.
Now, how could that be? Pardon?
You don't try to hurt a cat.
Well, you don't try to hurt dogs either, I mean, right? Domestic dog is generally just a family pet. You don't
Cats
hurt
are
them.
not included in the list.
And are you saying that that is because it's not included in the statute either, or is it, you know, is the state statute that strictly refers to that?
The suggestion we had was not to include cats. We did not.
Next, you ready?
You've never had any complaints about, you know, about cats, or, you know?
I've had complaints about my own cat, my own family.
All right,
Cat is my cat.
Yeah, cats are exempted. Next.
Lessa Brill, France Road. I just have a question as to what running at large means. And if you are going out with your dogs and they're not on a leash and they are with you, are they running at large, or does that's not running at large?
I would not consider that running at large.
Next, and next. Seeing no further comment, moderator declares Article 22 to appear on the ballot. Cats exempted. We need to make that amendment. Cats exempted. Number 23. Okay. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to appoint 5 members and up to 2 alternates to the advisory budget that was established in or prior to 1976. To do so with staggered 3-year terms of office that can be renewed. The method of selection from 1976 is no longer available under the changed form of government, originally limited to 1 2-year non-renewable term. Majority vote required by a 5-0 vote, or the Board of Selectmen recommends this article. We have a motion.
I move the article is read.
Second. Okay, now we have an amendment.
Mike, I'll move the amendment. You have it, can we read it?
Yeah. I can read it.
Move to amend Article 23 to add the following as a new last sentence. If both this article and Article 28 pass, this article will take precedence and the town will continue with only an advisory budget committee.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor with the amendment that was just read. And what I will do is jump from 22 to 28 so that we can deal with both these issues. It's very complicated. All right, open up the floor to discuss the amendment.
23?
The amendment to 23, which is, I'll read the amendment. Move to amend Article 23 to add the following as a new last sentence. If both this article and Article 28 pass, this article will take precedence and the town will continue with only an advisory budget committee. That's on the floor.
Okay, how could that amendment stand if Article 28 passes, that Article 28, because it's a municipal budget committee, and it would be done according to the statute, how would that not trump the article that you're saying is an advisory budget committee?
Under an SB2 form of government, you need some way of resolving conflicting articles. And to avoid having 2 budget committees, there needs to be an amendment to clarify which article will be a priority. And this amendment would indicate that the advisory budget article would take priority. There will also be an attempt to amend 28 to indicate that it would subjugate itself to number 23, so 23 would take priority over 28.
Okay, why didn't you write that language into Article 12, which has to do with the Spencer property? Because you changed your article to more coincide with the petitioner's article, for which you don't have a petition for. And so now you come on this article, and you're going to do your best to treat the petitioners in Article 28 different than you treated, you don't even have the petitioners in Article 12, but you did have a lobby come before you. How could you stand to do that?
Article 28 did not come in until after the selectmen had the hearing. They did not meet after this. You notice there's not a recommendation on 28 yet because the board has not been to discuss Article 28.
But
So therefore, this article was in there and did not have the opportunity for that discussion. That discussion was available because the petitioners came before they presented the petition.
You had no
Discussed
petition.
it. We had no petition.
You had no signed petition.
We had no signed petition. In this case, the signed petition came in. It created a situation in which the town would end up with two budget committees if they both passed. And to resolve that, there needs to be an article to say which one of these two will take priority.
Is a sign, if you get a petition that's not signed, is that a legal petition?
No.
But still, in Article 12, you accepted the writing of supposedly a petition to boil down your article to coincide with that article.
Not really. What the selectmen did is they had a discussion, and after discussion, they came up with a proposed warrant article. Obviously, it's part of the selectmen being responsive to people in doing it that way.
Well, I'm establishing that you're treating petitioners differently because you're right. You're amending your article, which is an advisory budget article. I would like to ask how many people you have on the advisory budget committee right now?
Currently, as members, 2.
Okay. Municipal Budget
One
Committee.
thing I want to add is that even though it's a petition warrant article, once the petition article is on the floor, as it is now, it can be amended by the selectmen or anybody here. There's nothing sacred about a petition warrant article.
Exactly. And I'm recognizing the fact as a taxpayer and a petitioner that a certain group of petitioners are being treated differently than another group of petitioners.
And that's not true.
In
I
this
don't
language,
see that either.
okay. I'd like to recognize on the advisory budget committee.
Well, wait, we have petition on a motion on the floor. We
Okay.
have to stick to the motion on the floor, that this is if this article passes and Article 28 passes, that 23 takes precedent over 28.
Okay. I'd like to.
That's what we're talking about. Okay, we got it aside. We can't have more than one advisory budget committee conflicting with each other. That's going to be a disaster.
28 wouldn't be an advisory budget committee.
I know. You can't have two budget committees conflicting with each other. Okay.
Now, on this amendment, I'd like to recognize some things on this amendment. One, you're talking about an amendment to an advisory budget committee. And I've asked, you're making an amendment to a committee right now that has 2 people on it. In 2012, the municipal budget committees in the state, there are 100 of them. There was a critical thing that you can't get people to volunteer, which is this is a volunteer budget committee. And 3 towns were cited. Barrington, by the way, has 11 positions that are filled in their municipal budget committee. Goffstown has 16. Plastow has 12. Those are the 3 towns that were brought up to criticize the petition warrant article for a municipal budget committee that was stated that you can't fill the position. But according to the facts, according to the records, it isn't. So I'm responding to this amendment. I don't think this is a amendment worthy, or if the article should stand over the municipal. Thank you.
Give next.
Steve Conklin, Hemlock Lane, formerly Elmer Drive, and before that in the Middle of Pond. Look, this is pretty, we've gone through this year after year. It's kind of a fun topic, all right? The Advisory Budget Committee has run extremely well over the time period that both Ellen and I have issues in those time periods about the diverse membership being somehow skewed in one direction or another. The notion that Article 28 has some merit reminds me of that old plumber's joke. The plumber's joke goes like this. He cuts the pipe 3 times and it still comes up too short. What you need to do here, folks, and you know, Ellen and I aren't going to be around, but what you need to do here is remember that this town runs on volunteers. And so people need to stand up, do some civic duty, take on some of these tasks. We've looked at it in other areas of the town where volunteering is necessary in order to make the town run well. And the advisory budget committee is no different than these other organizations. So I think you should vote for the amendment. You should vote for number 23. And I will be proposing an amendment to 28, which will make it more fun than saying 2C.
All right, any other discussion on the amendment? Just the amendment. We'll get to 28, that's the next thing.
George Bailey again. The reason I'm calling is that on the amendment involves Article 28, but I'll save that for 28. How can we turn around, let's beat the board here, turn around and change the RSA that allows us to turn around and come before you? I'm not advocating making any changes, I'm asking a question. The RSA says that if we, the town, do not want to have an advisory budget committee, we take the writing that's in the RSA and present it, well, we didn't do it for 28, I'm getting ahead of myself. Why are we going to try to put this here to prevent the town ever taking that RSA and making it the correct way here for an amendment for later on? Why are we bypassing that RSA?
We're not. The voters will have a choice. And the choice is, do they want an advisory budget committee or an official budget committee? And in order for that to be a true choice and to avoid ending up with 2 budget committees, there needs to be a clarification as to which one you end up with if they both pass.
One of the problems that you have is that
So if I understand it correctly, it's because of the old system that we had, we never came around and changed it to include with the board will select these people for 3 years and being appointed to be there.
Yes.
Okay, that being said, and having only 2 members on the Budget Advisory Committee, how do we take care of the state law and not having a Budget Advisory Committee review our budget?
There is no,
right now, that was just a...
right, there is no state law that you have to have an advisory budget committee.
Talk to you next week, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
that's George.
George Kaler from Malago Road. I think we need an explanation from most of these people about the relative difference between the powers of an advisory budget committee and a budget committee created under the Municipal Budget Act that has real powers. I served, I think, 9 terms on the budget committee. It was a few years ago. I don't know if the Municipal Budget Act still exists, but under that, the budget committee created the budget, and the selectmen had to deal with it within certain parameters, line item up or down, I believe 10% up or down. So if you pass, if official means under the RSA for the Municipal Budget Act, it's going to change the face of these meetings significantly.
Yes.
And I think people ought to understand the difference. When I was on the committee, we were more than happy to do the advisory budget committee, as long as we got reasonable service for getting the information we needed to make our decisions. Thank you.
Any other? Yes.
I mean, I think George is absolutely right. There's a difference between advisory and official. I think the biggest problem with an official is that they're going to propose the budget, and then the Board of Selectmen are going to have to institute that without making that budget. I think, as a member of the ABC, I was for 2 years, I never had any pushback from the selectmen or the town administrator when we were requesting information, probably the same experience that George had. We had all the information, the selectmen were very receptive in taking our advice, and it was a great relationship. So I don't see the need to go official budget committee. I think that also being restricted by that 10% rule that you spoke of, which is still in effect, can cause some problems for the selectmen in the town if, emergencies arise. That's my personal opinion. Just one other thing on, I can't remember who said it, but we are going to propose on 28 the same language that we're proposing on the 23. That if 28 passes and 23 doesn't, that 28 shall be the one that we're going to abide by. So we're not going to be treating either one differently, and the voters are going to get to choose whether it's advisory or whether it's official. So we are, I think we are putting the decision in the voters' hands. That's my 2 cents on that.
Ellen Conklin, Hemlock Lane. I was on the Advisory Budget Committee for over 10 years, and I would have to say, from September to December, we, because my husband was on it there with me, probably put in 5 to 6 hours a week going over the budget. We had meetings, we took notes, we had minutes, we had questions for the selectmen, we got responses. I don't know what it would take, time-wise, if I was to have to build the budget. I think that's the biggest difference between the volunteer and the official. Thank you.
Paul Mossel again. Just kind of keep going off of what